My sister-in-law orchestrated a fake engagement party for my husband, but her apartment was mine. When she cried for help, I destroyed her with one word. My sister-in-law started small, forgetting to invite me to family meals, scheduling birthday celebrations at the incorrect time, and editing me out of internet photographs. She said with a phony smile, "Sorry, must have forgotten." I told my husband Jack, but he constantly protected her. Simply protected. We're near, she needs time. Tara understood how to manipulate him. She manipulated him from childhood. She cried over my changing him, how he stopped seeing family, how I isolated him. It was all lies, but she was brilliant at crying. After divorcing, her best friend Sophie returned to town. Sophie began attending every family gathering, sitting next to Jack, laughing at his stories, and carrying his favorite beer. Tara sat us at opposite ends of the table. Put Sophie next to him. Sophie's struggling. Tara said, "Jack, you should help her fix her car. You're so good with those things." And he went. Since he was helpful, Tara would provide me the erroneous restaurant location and pretend surprised when I arrived late to find Sophie in my seat. Sophie sat down. "Since we didn't expect you. You don't mind?" When we visited their mother's house over holidays, she suggested Jack and Sophie share the pull-out couch while I took the uncomfortable armchair because there weren't enough bedrooms, saying, "Oh no, it just makes sense space-wise." Calculation was the worst part. Jack never saw her do anything blatant. When I said it, she twisted everything. "I attempt to involve you, but you're always negative. Maybe if you were kinder, warmer, and family-like." She said this in public, making me appear tough. Breakdown occurred last Christmas. Tara planned a spectacular family vacation. It was announced to all but me. She informed me 2 days earlier. "Oh, I thought Jack told you. The cabin is full today. Sophie is coming since she's alone for the holidays. You comprehend, right?" Jack left without me. Posted fireplace photos. The Christmas jumper his parents bought Sophie. My parents still called me Jack's wife after 5 years. Never my real name. After he returned, I was done. Not because I suspected cheating, he didn't. But he couldn't see, so he didn't believe me over his sister. Always pick them. "Maybe we shouldn't be together if you can't see how she's ruining us." Told him. He called me neurotic, jealous, and controlling. We divorced. Fast, tidy, no asset disputes. His retirement continued. Kept my. He acquired the house his parents assisted with. I got our investments. Both of us sobbed signing the paperwork. "Still adore you," he said. Saying I love you too. But love isn't enough when your family hates us. Tara rejoiced. She helped him move out, hosted a new beginning party, and invited Sophie to support him through the divorce. She relocated into the downtown luxury flat. She mentioned the 11,500 square foot unit with the doorman and rooftop pool. She continuously uploaded photos. "So lucky to have this room, my finest life. Sometimes bad things turn good." That apartment was my investment, but she didn't know. I bought it 4 years before meeting Jack. My company owned it, administered by a property firm. Tara noticed it online and applied without asking who owned it. My sister-in-law was unknown to the property management. Why would? No relation between last names. Before throwing Jack and Sophie's engagement party, she had lived there 8 months. They got engaged. Tara's wish fulfilled. She mentioned hosting it in her lovely place. Everything was wonderful. How Sophie was her dream sister. I arrived a week after the celebration. I told the doorman I was inspecting the property. He let me write. All documents were mine. Tara answered at 2 p.m. in yoga clothes with a champagne glass. Her reaction at my sight was priceless. "Why are you here?" As I passed her, I said, "Property inspection. Check for damage and evaluate the unit. Not just anyone may enter. I have rights. I may inspect with proper notice," which was delivered last week as the owner. Out came the papers. Her face blanched. She grabbed the papers, but I stopped her. I took shots with my phone in the living room as I passed her. The unit was different from listing photographs. She illegally painted one wall dark gray. That was recorded. She ran after me, saying she didn't know. This was ridiculous, and we were family. When I entered the kitchen, she had replaced the cabinet hardware with fancy brass poles. Some more images. The move-in inspection didn't mention the granite countertops fracture near the stove. While she claimed to be the perfect renter, I took notes on my iPad. No late payments, no issues. She and I agreed on rent. That didn't bother my property management business, but the contract allowed changes. She wanted formal consent for adjustments. She lacked it. In the bedroom, I saw scuff marks on the hardwood flooring from moving furniture for the engagement party. New shower curtain rods were drilled into the tiling in the bathroom. I documented everything. She was shouting that I was bothering her and had no right to do this. I took the inspection notice from my folder. It arrived 10 days ago by email and mail at her residence. She went silent. I completed recording her workplace in her second bedroom. After seeing enough, I told her. The property management business would receive usual reports of breaches. What did that mean? I mentioned that party congestion and unlawful changes violated the lease. She would receive official notice from management. Her deadline was 28 days to correct the faults or be penalized. Her hands were shaking more. Her question was, if I would evict her. That wasn't my call. A property management business managed all tenant contacts. It would be okay if she fixed the infractions in 28 days. She started weeping, the same tears she'd shed on Jack for years. I packed my folder and tablet. She followed me to the door and asked if we could discuss this and resolve it. Everything will go via right procedures, I promised her. A tenant she. Since I owned the property, the management firm handled all correspondence. I left her in the doorway and took the elevator. I phoned Hannah from my garage parking spot. On the second ring, she answered. I told them I'd inspected apartment 509 and found my ex-sister-in-law living there. A minute of silence from Hannah. She inquired whether it was an issue. No, I said. That I wanted everything done right. No special treatment either. I explained what I found. Illegal paint, cabinet hardware, shower rod installation, floor damage, and party signs that violated capacity limitations. Hannah noted. She promised to issue the customary infraction notification in 48 hours. I told her to take meticulous notes. I needed proof that Tara was treated equally if she sued for harassment or discrimination. Hannah knew she'd managed houses for 15 years. She handled tough challenges. We decided she'd be Tara's sole contact. I wouldn't discuss tenancy with her. Hannah copied me on formal documents but handled all conversation. I thanked her and hung up. While driving home, my phone rang. Jack's name on screen. Since the divorce, he hadn't contacted me in 4 months. I replied. He yelled before I could greet him. My attack at home, privacy invasion, and eviction threat upset Tara, who phoned him weeping. He threatened to acquire a restraining order if I harassed his family. I waited for his exhaustion. I inquired whether he was done. What gave me the right to visit Tara's apartment? So I told him I own the building. Turned quiet. I told him I acquired that house 4 years earlier as an investment before we met. My company owned it, administered by a property firm. Tara applied for rent like everyone else. The property manager was unaware of our connection. His answer seemed preposterous, too convenient. I promised to send the documents. He said I lied. I add, fine, check your email in 5 minutes. I pulled over and texted him everything from my phone, including the original purchase documentation from 4 years ago with my LLC as the buyer, the property management contract, and Tara's inspection notice from last week. Pictures of the infractions I detected were included. I phoned him back. He replied without speaking. He was presumably reading my files. I heard him breathe. I inquired about having seen enough. He produced a sound like he was speaking but couldn't. I told him this was business. The property was mine. Tenant Tara. She needs lease infractions fixed. The property management firm handled everything as usual. He eventually asked why I never disclosed owning that building. It never came up. We married. I had several investments. He never requested my portfolio. He quieted again. I promised him the management business would notify Tara. Correcting the violations would solve the issue. He may ask questions directly. I ended the call. Hannah contacted 2 days later to inform Tara of the formal notification. It identified all infractions with images and gave her 28 days to fix them or risk lease termination. Any renter would receive the same notification. Hannah reported that Tara had contacted the office 3 times. She insisted the LLC structure was bogus and demanded to talk to the true owner. Hannah said many property owners utilize businesses. Tara didn't trust her. She requested my contact details. Hannah declined, citing business policy. The management office handled all tenant communications. Tara threatened lawsuit. Hannah gently explained that she may seek legal advice, but the notice was real and the offenses were documented. She was disconnected by Tara. Thanks to Hannah for handling it professionally. She found it simpler than certain tenant situations. At least Tara was furious, not deadly. 3 days later, my assistant warned me that someone was coming without an appointment. Asked who. A woman named Tara. I ordered her to send Tara in. She looked different in my office. No yoga gear. In a dress and shoes, she applied cosmetics meticulously. She smiled and requested conversation. A chair across from my desk was my suggestion. She sat down and apologized. She reflected on her treatment of me during my marriage to Jack. She recognized her overprotectiveness was damaging. She desired a fresh, family-oriented start. Listening without replying. She continued, claiming she now knew I'd always cared about Jack. She was foolish to reject me. Maybe we can have coffee and get to know one another watching my face, she calculated. I knew the look. She sought the best perspective for me. I told her we were landlords with tenants. It would be handled professionally by the property management business. She blinks. Her smile tightened. Changing tactics, she leant forward and said she understood the marriage affected me. She understood, but she hoped I wouldn't make her living situation worse. I reported lease infractions. The notification required her to respond. Only that. Then she cried. Real tears, or better artificial ones. She discussed how hard it had been since her divorce. How much she loved that place. How she couldn't move. And how she'd mend everything. She required my understanding of her predicament. I awaited her finish. I stressed that she only needed to follow her lease. Everything had to go via the property management business, but they would help her with the time frame. She dried her eyes and urged us to manage this simply between us. No, I said. She departed silently. I got a call that afternoon. Unknown number. A woman asked whether I was Jack's ex-wife when I responded. Yes, I said. She introduced herself as Jack's Aunt Lena Few. Family reunions brought up faint memories of her. We hardly communicated during my marriage. She stated she heard Tara's apartment incident. She requested coffee with me. Asking why. She stated she should have disclosed me family details years ago. I agreed out of curiosity. Our downtown coffee shop appointment was for the next day. She thanked me and said she was delighted I learned the truth about Tara. I visited the coffee shop the next afternoon. Lena was already in a corner booth with 2 drinks. Waved me over and slipped one over the table. She appeared exhausted and older than in those few family reunions. Before I sat down, she started talking. She stated Tara started to influence people at 12 when their father left. Martha collapsed after the divorce and relied on Tara. Tara quickly realized that she could manipulate her mother's emotions by sobbing or playing victim. Jack was 6 when Tara treated him like her project. She advised him on thoughts, trust and feelings. He needed her approval before making any decisions by the time he was a teenager. Lena observed and tried to talk to Martha, but Martha ignored her family united around Tara's reality. Lena apologized, saying she should have spoken out during my marriage. She assumed I was strong enough to handle Tara alone. I drank coffee and assured her I didn't need strength, then I needed support. Explaining would have mattered less than support. She nodded and looked at her cup. Then she said something to make me queasy. Tara had done this to 3 prior significant girlfriends of Jack. 3 relationships before me ended similarly. She'd create issues between Jack and his date, playing the protective sister role. One girl endured 2 years before giving up. The whole family rejected another who sought to put boundaries with Tara. 3 recognized what was occurring early, and escaped before things became worse. Lena had seen the pattern recur, but no one else in the family noticed or cared. She showed me images from years ago of Jack with these women at family occasions on her phone. Tara was in every frame, arm around Jack or hand on his shoulder. Girls were constantly on the fringes, shut off or pushed aside. Looked like my marriage in reverse. In case I required a witness, Lena offered to testify. The strength of her voice astonished me. She wanted Tara to be accountable for whatever. I thanked her and left the coffee shop understanding family dynamics for the first time. It wasn't just Sophie or myself, it took decades to develop this design. The phone rang 3 days later as I was reading property reports. Screen displayed Hannah's name. Within 28 days Tara fixed every lease infraction, she said. A licensed contractor reversed kitchen changes. She provided proof the celebration didn't violate occupancy limitations. Finally, everything was compliant. Despite myself, I was impressed. Tara was clever to not offer me ammo against her. I was keeping my professional distance as planned. Everything was legal and recorded. No personal drama and corporate decisions. Hannah reported Tara was helpful and nice throughout the final assessment. I advised Hannah to follow standard processes everywhere. She agreed and hung up. A message appeared on my social media that night. My message requests included Sophie's profile photo. She requested a meeting without Jack or Tara, knowing I studied the message for a minute. I almost ignored it, but curiosity won. I recommended a coffee shop across town, away from the family. She quickly thanked me and asked if tomorrow worked. I nodded and placed my phone down, wondering what she wanted to say. She entered the coffee shop nervously, searching the room before seeing me. She slid into the booth across from me after I waved. Up close, she seemed younger than I expected, maybe 25 to my 32. She seemed fresh-faced, so I understood why Tara selected her. Simple to shape and control. She ordered tea and fiddled with the menu while waiting. She began speaking. She never intended to separate Jack and me. Tara planned everything from the start. Sophie returned to town without friends or support after her divorce. Tara quickly befriended her, invited her everywhere, and included her. Then Tara kept talking about her brother, how amazing he was, and how he deserved someone caring and warm. Sophie agreed since Tara was her only friend. She showed me text messages on her phone. Tara spent months advising her on how to talk to Jack, how to act around him, what to wear to family occasions, how to laugh at his jokes, inquire about his work, and bring his favorite beer. Scrolled through them and felt nauseous. Similar manipulation has been tried on me, albeit from a different viewpoint. Tara played puppet master with him and me. Why was Sophie showing me this now? Her hands shook as she put her phone down. She was afraid to marry into this family. Tara became increasingly domineering as the wedding approached. She was in charge of every wedding detail, insisting they live together after the ceremony, and contacting Sophie daily to check in. Sophie understood she wasn't getting married. Tara's control system swallowed her. She'd be another Tara puppet. Sophie was suffering panic attacks over the 4-month wedding. She asked me not to tell Jack about our rendezvous. She stated Tara would destroy her if she knew. I didn't guarantee anything, but I said I understood her predicament more than she thought Tara manipulated her again, but she initially benefited. Now she saw the benefits cost. I felt sorry for her unexpectedly. Not the opponent I thought. Like everyone else, she was young and lonely and trapped in Tara's web. After finishing our drinks, she departed first, looking over her shoulder for Tara. Next morning, I contacted Emily Walton. Someone referred her as a tenant rights attorney months ago when I extended my property portfolio. Every interaction with Tara has to be legal and ethical. Emily had me to her office that afternoon. I brought all my paperwork, inspection reports, HANA communications, and Tara notices. Emily carefully examined each item on her conference table. After an hour, she glanced up and said I'd done well as landlord. Standard procedures were followed fully. She told me to keep a professional distance and never allow personal past impact work decisions. I told her I'd been doing it. Everything passed via HANA. Everything was recorded. The book was followed. Emily advised me that Tara may sue for harassment or discrimination if I treated her differently from other renters. Even the appearance of personal motive might be illegal. I informed her that the property management firm handled everything according to their protocols. Tara never got special treatment, good or bad. This was another resident in my building. Emily appeared satisfied but advised me to properly document every encounter moving forward. Keep every email, call log, and inspection report. I'd require confirmation of expert handling if Tara claimed harassment. Thanks to her, I left feeling more confidence in my approach. Oliver, my accountant, contacted that week. Concerning my property portfolio quarterly review. We reviewed occupancy and maintenance expenditures for each structure. Oliver informed us that Tara had paid her rent on time every month when we arrived downtown. She was a great renter, never late, never bounced checks, never had payment issues. Despite our personal relationship, she paid her rent and gave me no business problems. She obeyed her contract. Her flat was well maintained. My landlordship couldn't be better. I saw the irony. She was my most reliable renter after destroying my marriage. Jack arrived at my office 3 days later without phoning. My assistant buzzed me to say someone was here. He was in the lobby when I left. He looked awful. Dark shadows beneath his eyes, crumpled shirt from sleeping. He wanted to discuss our marriage's true story. Lena's words made him reconsider all he knew I wanted to avoid previous hurt. I didn't want to repeat anything, but his lost, worn face persuaded me to agree to supper that night. He went, and I spent the day working and wondering what happened. Lena told him. We met in a quiet restaurant across town with far-apart tables for private chats that evening. Jack ordered beer, I ordered wine, and we sat awkwardly for a minute before he started chatting. He thought a lot after learning I owned Tara's building. He saw things differently after the coincidence. Made him wonder what else he missed. He turned to me after scrolling his phone. Tara text messages over 6 months, dozens. Read them as I leaned in. Messages praising my absence from family meals. Comments about how much better life was without me. Detailed seating ideas for Sophie next to Jack. Strategy sessions for Sophie's themes. She should tell tales. Tara wrote it all down, evidence of everything I told him during our marriage. As Jack browsed through more texts, his hands trembled. He seemed saddened, like he was seeing his sister for the first time. He kept repeating he couldn't believe. I couldn't believe he was blind. I observed him absorbing what I'd been teaching him for years. He sincerely apologized. He apologized for his mistakes. Not the defensive sorry he gave when I complained about Tara during our marriage. He apologized for not believing me, preferring his sister above his wife, and allowing Tara ruin us. He glanced at me across the table and asked whether we could repair this. Appreciate the apologies. Really did. Finally being heard and believed felt amazing. I told him it was too late. Some things are irreparably broken. Someone else was engaged to him creating life with Sophie. I'd moved on. Made a new life without him. He gently nodded, accepting my response, though I could tell it hurt. He heard about Sophie's fears about Tara's influence over their relationship from me. Seating himself, he seemed astonished. He saw Sophie becoming quieter, more worried, and distant as the wedding approached. She stopped making wedding decisions and followed Tara's advice. I advised him to discuss their marriage with Sophie without his sister's interference. He had to determine if Sophie was marrying him or Tara. After supper, we parted ways. It seemed weird to lock a door that had been open for months as I drove home. I was preparing coffee when my phone rang 2 days later. I answered despite not knowing the number. Tara screamed with anger. She knew I ate with Jack. How could I hurt her family? Bitter ex-wife who couldn't go on. Requested Reds is on Spotify. See link in description or comments. It was me poisoning Jack against her. She accused more and more, her voice growing louder and more uncontrolled. No interruptions. I let her ramble until she ran out of words. I hung up without saying anything and saved her previous message that I hadn't listened to. It was worse than the phone call. 3 minutes of identical charges. It was sent to Emily Walton with a brief explanation. Emily contacted within an hour to indicate this harassment warranted a cease and desist letter. She'd write one now. Everyone had to follow the rules now. Tara stopped communicating. Hannah contacted that afternoon to update. Tara arrived at the property management office asking to break her lease early and leave. Hannah carefully discussed the financial penalty for lease termination. She saw her signed terms. Tara shouted that she was evicted. Hannah had stayed professional, telling Tara she could stay through her lease or depart as arranged. She chose, but all renters faced the same penalty thanks to Hannah for managing it properly. I looked over my paperwork at my desk after we hung up. The inspection reports, rectified lease violations, payment history, voicemail, and Emily's cease and desist letter. I understood Tara was sliding because she'd lost control of her tale. Her cries and manipulation couldn't repair her first genuine problems. No crying could get her out of a lease. With everything documented and professional, she couldn't make me the bad person. She had no idea how to manage the power shift. I got another call that week. This was Jack's mother, Emily. I almost didn't answer since I didn't know why she called. She never accepted me as Jack's wife. I never tried. But curiosity triumphed, and I took up. She instantly spoke out, demanding I stop tormenting Tara. My vendetta drove her daughter away, distraught and unable to sleep. If I didn't leave Tara, she'd sue. After she finished her threats, I gently stated I was a landlord doing business. She should call the property management firm with concerns. Emily hated that response. She said everything wrong with me as a wife. I was cold, unpleasant, and neglected the family. My Christmas meals were never proper. Their customs confused me. I cut Jack off from his family. She continued. Every complaint she'd supposedly saved for 6 years. Before she took a breath, I let her finish talking. I inquired whether she was done. She sputtered, apparently astonished by my cool response. When the divorce was official, I informed her I no longer cared about her view. I hung up and blocked her phone. An hour later, Lena called, laughing so hard she couldn't speak. Emily called the whole family to complain about my rudeness. It was the finest thing Lena had ever heard that someone had finally stopped Emily's bullying. She offered to take me to lunch the next week to tell me about the family that would explain Tara's behavior. I met Lena the next week in a downtown modest restaurant with outside seats and tasty sandwiches. I arrived to find her at a corner table with 2 iced teas. She stepped up and hugged me, surprising me because we'd never been close throughout my marriage. We spent a few minutes talking about the weather and the food, but I could see she had more to say after ordering. She leaned forward and spoke. "Tara's manipulation didn't start with me," she said. "Their father departed years earlier. Martha broke down when Tara left at 12. She sobbed constantly, couldn't get up, and stopped cooking and cleaning. Tara took over the house and Jack, who was just 6 more importantly. Tara learned to regulate Martha's emotions. If she was kind and helpful, Martha felt better. If she retreated, Martha grew worse. It granted Tara newfound power, which she utilized. Jack became her project. Someone she could shape and manage from the start. She advised him on friendships, thoughts, and behavior. Martha encouraged it since Tara kept the family together well. Lena saw but couldn't stop it. Martha ignored her attempts to talk to her about letting the kids grow up normally for not supporting the family. In high school and college, Lena saw Tara destroy Jack's relationships. Jack adored Jessica in college. But Tara convinced him she was exploiting him for money. Tara complained to Jack about Maria's disrespect for family values. Pattern was constant. By the time I arrived, Tara had been doing this for nearly 15 years, finding something wrong with every female, convincing Jack and comforting him through the breakup. Lena gave me her phone's notes, dates, and specifics of every connection Tara wrecked. She chronicled everything in hopes of holding Tara accountable. I questioned Lena why she was telling me now after my whole marriage of silence. She added, "I was the first with the authority to act. I owned Tara's building, which disrupted her sense of control in a way that couldn't be manipulated. Tara couldn't cry her way out of a lease or make me the bad guy when everything was legal and documented." Lena saw this as an opportunity to break the toxic pattern that had controlled their family for years. She wanted me to understand that this wasn't just about me or my marriage. Hannah called while we were eating lunch to update me. She said Tara had called the office that morning to say she'd stay through her lease term. Hannah said Tara sounded quieter and less demanding on the phone, and she seemed defeated in a way Hannah hadn't seen in their previous interactions. I thanked Hannah for the update and told her to continue treating Tara like any other tenant. I could handle 6 months of professional landlord-tenant relationship. When I returned to the table, Lena was paying the check. She asked if everything was okay, and I told her about Tara's decision to stay but not renew. Lena smiled and said it was probably the first time in her life she couldn't control the outcome. 3 days later, Jack texted me to meet again. He said he'd been in therapy learning about family dysfunction and manipulation and wanted to talk about it. I agreed to meet for coffee, curious about what therapy was teaching him. We met at a coffee shop near his new apartment, and I barely recognized him. He started talking immediately after we got our drinks and sat down. He told me his therapist had given him books to read about enmeshed families and emotional manipulation, and everything he was learning described his relationship with Tara perfectly. The therapy was helping him see how Tara had controlled him his whole life, making decisions for him in the name of protective concern. When he confronted her about some of it, she cried and said he was abandoning the family like their father. Jack told me he'd postpone the wedding indefinitely because he and Sophie needed to figure out their relationship without Tara's influence. Sophie had moved to her own apartment across town, and they were dating properly for the first time without Tara overseeing everything. Jack was demanding distance from his mother and wouldn't attend every family gathering. Martha was upset, calling him selfish and ungrateful. The whole family was in upheaval because Jack was standing up for himself. I was proud of Jack for doing the work and finally seeing what I'd tried to show him for years, but I told him this didn't change anything between us. Our marriage was over, and his growth didn't erase the years of pain he'd caused by choosing his sister over me. Jack nodded and said he understood. He wanted me to know that he finally saw the truth about what happened to us and apologized for all the years he dismissed my concerns and made me feel crazy for seeing what was right in front of us. He took responsibility for the divorce, not protecting our marriage, and letting Tara destroy what we had. I accepted his apology and hoped he and Sophie could build something healthy together. We finished our coffee and said goodbye, and I felt closure I hadn't expected. 2 days after my meeting with Jack, Tara sent me pages of text about how I was destroying her family and harming her brother. She accused me of manipulating Jack against her, using my position as his landlord to control his life, and being vindictive and cruel. She said I'd never understood their family bond and was jealous of their closeness. The email went on, listing every way I'd wronged her and demanding I leave them alone. I read it once and forwarded it to Emily Walton without responding. An hour later, Emily called me and said she'd send Tara a formal cease and desist letter. The email was clearly harassment, and Emily wanted it on record that Tara needed to stop all direct contact with me. Everything had to go through legal or business channels from now on. Emily sent the letter that afternoon, and Tara stopped direct contact with me. I focused on my life and business, which had been doing well since the divorce. I'd thrown myself into work during the separation, and it paid off in ways I didn't expect. Oliver called for our regular check-in and told me my property portfolio had increased 30% in value over the past year. My other investments were doing well, and Oliver suggested I buy another downtown building while the market was good. I asked him to send me some options. Living well was the sweetest revenge. I had a successful business, financial security, and peace that I never had in my marriage. A week later, Sophie reached out on social media again, thanking me for talking to Jack and helping him understand the family dynamics. Once Tara stopped controlling everything, their couple's counseling was going well. Sophie seemed happy and more confident than when we met at the coffee shop. She said Jack was becoming the person she'd always known he could be and was grateful I'd pushed back against Tara's manipulation, even though it cost me my marriage. She promised they were building something real together, based on honest communication instead of Tara's orchestration. A few weeks later, I attended a downtown property investors networking event, one of those evening mixers with wine and name tags where people talk about market trends and zoning laws. I went mostly for business connections, but I had fun talking to several real estate investors. After the event, someone asked if I wanted to grab drinks, and I said yes without thinking. We went to a nearby bar and talked for 2 hours about everything except real estate. When I got home that night, I realized I was ready to date again. The divorce hurt, but I'd healed more than I thought. Hannah called the next week with her monthly report and said Tara had been a model tenant for 3 months. No issues, no neighbor complaints, rent paid early every time I asked if Tara had caused any problems, and Hannah said no. Everything was professional and clean. I wondered if losing control had forced Tara to behave better or if she was just biding her time and planning something. Either way, the professional relationship was working as it should. Tara was following her lease terms and I was staying out of her personal life. A few days later, Lena called to invite me to a small family gathering she was hosting, making it clear that Martha and Tara would not be there. I was surprised but agreed to come, and when I arrived at her house that Saturday, I met several of Jack's extended family members I'd never met during the marriage. The biggest surprise was meeting Jack's father for the. He left when Jack was 7 or 8 years old and I always thought he was gone. He was there with his second wife, a kind woman who taught high school math, and he had a different perspective on family dynamics than anyone else I told. Jack's father pulled me aside after dinner and apologized for not protecting Jack from Tara's manipulation growing up. He said he left partly because Martha was using the children as emotional weapons during their marriage, and Tara had learned to do the same by watching her mother. He tried to stay in touch with both kids after the divorce. But Martha and Tara poisoned Jack against him with lies and manipulation. Every visit became a battle, and every phone call ended with Jack crying and confused. He stopped trying because he thought he was hurting Jack more by staying involved. He said watching Tara destroy my marriage was like watching history repeat itself, and he felt guilty for not warning me or Jack about the patterns he'd seen. The gathering gave me closure I didn't know I needed. Realizing that the dysfunction went deeper than Tara's jealousy or Martha's coldness helped me see that this family had been broken for decades and the situation was hopeless no matter what I did. I'm glad I left before years of manipulation and pain. Jack and Sophie seemed happy together now that they were building something real without Tara controlling every interaction. They sat close together and talked instead of performing for an audience, and Sophie looked more relaxed than ever. We went to dinner, saw movies, and took walks around the city, and everything felt healthy and normal in a way my relationship with Jack never did. I was honest about my divorce and the complicated family situation from the start, and they respected my boundaries in ways that felt completely different from my marriage. No family drama, hidden manipulation, or walking on eggshells, just two people getting to know each other and seeing if something good could develop. Hannah called again when Tara's lease was expiring to confirm that she was moving to a different neighborhood across town near her job. I'm glad the landlord-tenant relationship ended well and professionally. Tara never caused problems after that initial confrontation in her apartment, which I respected despite our history. She could have made things difficult, but she followed the rules and behaved properly. I appreciated her maturity, even though we'd never be friends. Jack called me on a Tuesday afternoon to say he and Sophie had decided not to marry but were staying together and building a life on their own. He said they realized the engagement had been rushed and influenced by Tara's expectations and wanted to figure out their relationship without that pressure. After some hard conversations, he was maintaining boundaries with Tara and had a healthier relationship with his mother. He sounded happy and clear-headed, like he'd finally figured out who he was, separate from his family's control. I realized after that call that owning Tara's building had forced everyone in that family to face the truth. I never wanted to own my ex-sister-in-law's apartment or have that much power over her life, but it was exactly what everyone needed to see reality. After that meeting, Lena and I started meeting for lunch monthly and became true friends without any connection to Jack or his family. She was thrilled that Jack was finally breaking free from the family dysfunction and kept thanking me for starting the process. I told her Jack did the work himself by choosing to see the truth and change his patterns. I only owned the right building at the right time. Jack's growth and effort were everything else. 3 weeks later, Hannah called me on the morning of Tara's move out to ask if I wanted to be present for the final inspection. I told her to handle it like any other tenant. Hannah texted me updates throughout the day as the movers cleared out furniture and Tara handed over her keys. The final inspection found the apartment in perfect condition, every wall clean, every fixture working, and no issues to document. Hannah sent photos of each room and confirmed that Tara would receive her full security deposit within the required time frame. Her last text said Tara was professional and cordial during the walkthrough, almost subdued compared to her usual personality. The landlord-tenant relationship ended properly with no drama on either side. I felt satisfied that everything had been handled correctly. 2 months after Tara left, I flew to the property management conference in Dallas, feeling more confident than I had in years. Walking through the convention center with other investors and property managers, I realized how much I had grown as a business person since the divorce. My divorce had forced me to focus on my own success instead of family drama, and I had built something solid. Oliver met me for dinner after the first day of sessions and we reviewed my portfolio numbers over steak and wine. Lena mentioned that Tara was in therapy 6 months after Tara moved out while we were having lunch at our usual downtown spot. A mutual friend had told Lena that Tara was losing her grip on Jack and facing consequences she couldn't manipulate was a real wake-up call, Lena said. Tara's therapist was helping her understand the patterns that started after their father left and how she used control to manage her abandonment anxiety. I told Lena I hoped the progress was genuine for everyone's sake, that true transformation would benefit the whole family. After years of witnessing Tara manipulate situations, I was hesitant, but I knew people could change if they wanted to. Lena showed me photos on her phone from Jack and Sophie's wedding the week before. A small ceremony at a garden venue with just close friends. Tara and Martha weren't invited, which Lena said was a huge boundary for Jack to set after a lifetime of putting his mother and sister first. The photo showed Jack and Sophie looking happy and free, holding hands under an arch of flowers and laughing with their small group of guests. Sophie wore a simple white dress. I was surprised by how relaxed they were during my marriage to him. Lena said the ceremony was beautiful and emotional, focusing on Jack and Sophie's commitment to each other without family drama or manipulation. I was glad they were building something real together. I fell in love again after my relationship became serious over those months. My partner had healthy family relationships, respected boundaries naturally, and communicated openly about everything. We spent weekends exploring the city, cooking dinner, and talking about our goals and dreams without hidden agendas. The contrast to my marriage with Jack was so stark it almost felt unreal at first, like I was waiting for the manipulation to start. But it never did, because my partner came from a functional family where people said what they meant and respected each other's independence. I was grateful for Jack's familial pain because it taught me what healthy relationships should look like. Every dinner with my partner's parents showed me what normal family. Oliver called me 3 months later about the second downtown building I had been considering for over a year. The owner had finally agreed to sell, and the numbers worked even better than our initial projections. I signed the purchase agreement in Oliver's office, expanding my investment portfolio with a property that would generate strong returns for decades. Instincts for finding undervalued properties in developing neighborhoods. I was proud of building a business that thrived beyond my wildest dreams during those dark months of divorce. The building symbolized everything I had achieved by focusing on my own growth rather than fixing a broken family dynamic. After being excluded from Jack's wedding, Lena mentioned during our next lunch that Martha had finally started questioning her role in the family dysfunction. She was also in therapy, working on her enmeshment with Tara and how she had enabled toxic patterns for years. Martha's therapist was helping her see how she had used her children to meet her emotional needs after the divorce instead of building a healthy adult life. responsibility for their role in the dysfunction. I told Lena I was glad they were all getting help, that it would benefit everyone, especially Jack and Sophie, as they built their marriage. Part of me wondered if things would have been different if this healing had happened during my marriage to Jack, but I knew the timing wasn't right. On a Tuesday morning 3 months later, I accidentally met Tara at a coffee shop. We both froze, her hands stopping halfway to the cream and sugar station and my feet planted in the doorway. Other customers ordered drinks and found tables while we awkwardly waited. Then Tara walked over to me slowly, her face showing no manipulation or fake warmth. She asked if we could talk for a minute and I nodded, curious what she wanted to say. We stood near the window while she apologized sincerely for everything she had done to destroy my marriage. Tara admitted she had been cruel and manipulative due to her own issues and took full responsibility for her actions. Therapy had shown her how toxic her behavior had been and how she had hurt everyone, including Jack, by trying to control his life. When she finished, I told her I accepted her apology but made clear that forgiveness didn't mean reconciliation or friendship between us. She nodded immediately, saying she understood and wasn't asking for anything other than acknowledging the harm she had caused. After a moment of silence, we said goodbye and went our separate ways. I felt like a chapter of my life had ended. 4 months later, my partner proposed on the rooftop of my downtown building on a clear evening with the city lights below us. We had gone up there for a casual dinner. At my partner's request, the building manager set up a small table with candles. When they got down on one knee and pulled out a ring, I laughed at the irony that the property that exposed Tara's manipulation was now my new beginning. I said yes immediately, pulling them up to kiss me as the city sparkled. Life had a funny way of turning the place where everything fell apart into where everything came together. We stayed on that rooftop for hours, talking about our future and making plans for an honest, respectful life. I thought about how much I had grown and healed since visiting Tara's door with inspection paperwork. 3 weeks after the proposal, my phone lit up with Jack's name for the first time in months. I stared at it for a moment before answering, wondering what he could want now. Because Lena told him about the engagement, his voice was warm and genuine. He said he was happy for me and that I deserved someone who truly valued me and put me first. He said he'd been working hard in therapy and finally understood how badly he'd failed me during our marriage. I thanked him for calling and told him I appreciated his growth since the divorce. We ended the call on good terms, and I was grateful that he'd reached that point of genuine self-awareness. It was the closure I hadn't realized I still needed from him. I was excited to start wedding planning right after that call. My partner and I met with vendors, toured venues, and made decisions together with equal input and enthusiasm. Their family welcomed me to dinners and included me in conversations without manipulation or exclusion like Jack's family. Their mother learned my coffee order after one visit and always had my favorite pastries ready when I came over. Their sister asked genuine questions about my business and listened instead of trying to undermine me. The contrast between this warm, healthy family dynamic and Martha and Tara made me appreciate my new life even more. Every planning session was joyful instead of stressful because everyone wanted to celebrate our happiness. My partner's parents offered to help with costs but respected our decision to handle it ourselves. Nobody tried to take over or impose their vision on our wedding. I immediately said yes when Lena called to help with wedding planning. She arrived at our next meeting with a notebook full of ideas and vendor recommendations from her daughter's wedding years earlier. We spent hours going over details, and she became an invaluable part of the process. While addressing invitations one afternoon, she joked that she was finally getting to celebrate a wedding in her family without manipulation and control. I laughed and told her she was family to me now, regardless of my divorce from Jack. She got teary and hugged me, saying she'd always hoped I'd stay in her life. Lena helped me choose flowers, gave honest dress advice, and hosted my bridal shower at her house. She told stories about watching Jack grow up and admitted she'd always known Tara's behavior was toxic but hadn't known how to stop it. I appreciated her honesty and genuine support during this happy time. My friends who'd supported me through the divorce and this new relationship helped me with final touches and kept me calm in the bridal suite. My partner's family filled the venue with laughter and love, creating a pure celebration. Lena sat in the front row, beaming with pride. Even my parents looked happier than at my first wedding. As I walked down the aisle toward my partner, I realized that Tara's attempts to destroy my first marriage had actually helped me achieve this better life. I owned a successful property business that kept growing, I had real friendships with caring people, and I was marrying someone who valued me and put our relationship first. Since the divorce, everything I'd built, from my successful business to these authentic relationships, proved that sometimes the best response to manipulation is simply succeeding without the manipulators in your life, and that's where we'll stop. I like when stories remind us of small things that still matter. If they helped you reflect or learn, that's what counts.